Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week. This is the 18th of April 2017. Joining me as always, Dan Miller.
Hello.
And special continuous guest. It's almost not right calling him a guest.
It's almost not special anymore.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tom McGill joining us on this show that is quite special. We've been waiting to talk about Rogue One. And so tonight's the night, and we've all come together recently and watched it in the Voyage of the Geek cinema complex.
Cinemaplex.
And we watched it in 3D.
Yeah, we did.
We did too. So yes, that's what we've got planned for the evening. But before we start, gentlemen, tell me your overall impressions of the cinema experience, without talking too much to the story or anything. Did you enjoy it as a film?
This is the popcorn quality.
Yeah.
The popcorn quality. Yes, I thought it was bloody excellent. I totally enjoyed it as a film.
For me, it's always rewatchability. If I can watch a film multiple times, that's the benchmark. So I saw it twice at the movies and again at the home theater.
So you watched 2D at the...
Always, yeah. In the movies, always 2D.
2D and then 3D here?
Yeah.
Any noticeable difference to the experience?
Yes, because maybe it's because we are visually effects minded, but I always think about the quality of special effects. So when I see a film that has lots of special effects, I sadly suffer from having to judge the quality, and takes me a little bit out of the story.
Yeah.
And the same goes for when you watch a film that is transferred into stereo in post. You look for telltale signs. You want to judge the quality of the transfer. What's it called? The
Conversion.
Conversion. That's right. And so there's, you sort of try and pick shots. And found plenty of those that where you think,
Yeah.
The conversion, which is when you film the film with a single camera, and then later on in post-production you add depth to. That means you have to to create parallax, you need to recreate backgrounds that you have to paint them in, and where in this film there's a lot of I guess the director likes filming with a shallow depth of field. There's lots of depth. He's got great. There's some. I wish I had prepared for some great camera angles. I don't know if anyone of you have, but this film has some fantastic camera angles. So Gareth Edwards is great at putting his shot together.
I think I can sum it up. My experience with the 3D in this film is that there was the wrong director. I think you could have got away with this guy as the director shooting it in 3D, but for conversion work, wrong guy, because he's such a guerrilla filmmaker at heart. He's looking for those opportunities for foreshortening in shots, and to have things in the foreground, depth of field blurring in the background. That's a nightmare for conversion, and even for seasoned conversion people. You have to understand with stereoscopic conversion too, it's really quite an artistic, creative process. You can't just give the task to anybody and get them to recreate every shot in the movie in 3D, because you've got to go in and actually understand depth and how camera lensing works, and then you've got to make decisions about what is lying on the same Z plane and things like that. And
if you're having a defocused shot, there is foreground elements where the same, you put your finger on the screen of the movie at the edge of the blurred character, and your finger is touching pixels that are both in the foreground as well as in the background.
Absolutely.
And creating that in a conversion later on, adding the depth.
And
it's
not to mention it's explosions and debris and lasers and...
I was impressed by those.
Sparks.
I was really impressed by some of the debris that flew through shot in the explosion shots.
Do you think maybe they're CG?
That was well done. Possibly.
And then they re-rendered for the other eye?
Some of those difficult shots must be tempting to get lazy on as well. There's probably a lazy temptation, so that you could sort of say, we've only got so many hours in the day, we've only got so much budget. We'll just do a pretty quick, 3D. Just chuck a coming at you thing in the front there, and
you do the conversion on the original footage, before all the composited elements get put in. So all the space scenes are 3D anyway. But even down on the ground when they're in Jeddah and there's a ATST, there's a walker going through, or the tank. Something. Oh, was the tank tank would have been a model?
I think
Would
the
have
tank was
been
probably
a practical thing, yeah. But background explosions, everything that was added in post is not a problem. But then there's most notably there's a shot where Director Krennic is being booted off the Death Star by Tarkin, and he's standing there and they're having their last argument, and he's surrounded by other high officers of the Empire, and they're looking at him.
Yeah.
But you look at it in stereo, and you could definitely tell that some eye lines weren't, the depth wasn't quite right, where the guy was placed in the 3D space was not quite where he was standing in real life, because his eyes weren't directly looking at Krennic, he was just looking past him.
We'll come back and touch on 3D a little bit later when we talk about technical side of things. But when we do come back, remind me to tell you about, I've since seen it, not the whole film, but a big enough chunk, about 20 minutes of it, on a 4K telly. And even though it's not a 4K version of the film, just the way it comes together in the frame, it's a totally different experience to me. You guys probably had the luxury of seeing it in 2D first and then 3D. I saw it in 3D first, and I hadn't seen it in 2D until I saw a couple of. I still haven't seen the whole film in 2D yet. But I can tell you it was a totally different experience seeing everything. Normally, we watched a film the other day recently, Moana, in 3D, so we could make some technical assessments about what this thing looks like in that space. And immediately we recognised the distances between things. The sets had scale. Everything has scale. And it's the same if you watch Avatar or anything that's shot in 3D. You get this immediate sense of scale and distance between the objects and the characters and the background. Conversion just never seems to catch that. Just never seems, and in fact, you're losing scale if it's done wrong. So I think I'm going to stick to my rule. I broke my rule buying this movie in 3D. From now on, I'm going to stick to it. If it's not shot in 3D, I'm not going to buy it in 3D. I'm not going to watch it in 3D.
We should go and probably look for some glaring errors and try and point them out. Or
you do get the option though, don't you? On most of the I don't have 3D, but usually the few movies that I bought on 3D, I also had the option of having a 2D version.
Yeah, but it's more expensive to get. Yeah. And you're tempted. I don't want to tempt it. I don't want to, because I think I may have corrupted my experience of this film without a good enough reason. I should have watched it first the way it was shot. But anyway, we might come back to that. So let's talk about the story. Who wants to lead off? What did you think of the story as Star Wars Universe's first standalone film? They're still calling it a standalone film, and I guess
story.
It is a story. Yeah, it's a standalone story.
That's right.
Yeah, I suppose it does stand alone.
What did you think of it?
I suppose the first thing that I liked is that it didn't suck.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a strange way of looking at it, but
you've been burnt.
Yeah,
been burnt.
You've bbeen burnt before, and so
standards change.
So that was the first thing, that it didn't suck. The other good thing about the story was they came up with some really brilliant ideas, like how come the Death Star has this obvious weakness where some idiot in a spaceship can just blow it up that easy. That was excellent. That's
the main message of the film, I think. Is somebody said it's the most expensive plot hole plug ever made.
$200 million plot plug.
Plot hole plug. Yeah. So there was that.
Which people weren't really. I mean, even the diehard fans are like, well, I could see it. Like, it's an exhaust pipe. You should shove something up an exhaust pipe that has an effect for, it's not a big stretch to accept that you could set off a chain reaction.
It's not ridiculous.
And it's a Star Wars universe. We're not we shouldn't bring too much science to this science fiction world. But yeah, I thought the plot of this film really nestled in there nicely to the lore, to the background of the
it certainly fit in there. So I think some of the other things that maybe we should talk about with it were it was a bit busy. It was quite busy at the start. Had a whole lot of characters in there.
Yeah.
Can
I'll
you-
ask you about the characters in a moment, because you're right. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot more character development in this film than
It's the
we've seen previously.
nature. If you look at the Dirty Dozen or any of those war movies
Yeah.
where you have a crew, you have a heist movie is the same thing. You get a
Yeah.
crew together,
Yeah.
you get a team together. It's usually something between 8 and 12 people, and they all have to. The first half of the film has to put together their background story, and they didn't do it for all of them. Some characters in this team were not introduced whatsoever. They were in the end on the beach and they were gunned down, and you saw them at the end. They had really no function. Others were sort of medium level introduced, like the guy whose names. That's the other thing.
this was the
you
thing
can,
I was
you can
gonna-
remember the names of some people, and they were the ones that.
Yeah.
This was what I was going to point
Yeah.
out. If you can't remember the names of the characters, you also got a bit of a...
Yeah.
You got a problem. You got too many characters or...
Yep.
Or not enough exposition at the start. Yeah.
Yeah, and that can get a bit tedious at the start because there was a bit... not tedious at the start, but there was a bit of slow kind of... I don't know, introducing lots of people and going in lots of different places. And it didn't really sort of ramp up until the middle, and then it sort of headed off onto its big sort of finale.
How about you, Tom? The story you mentioned heist. Is it a heist film, or is it
Yeah.
or is it a Dirty Dozen?
It's a mixture.
I mean, I
It's
guess
a,
a
it's,
Dirty
Dirty
Dozen
Dozens
is
do the
sort of a
same thing. Yeah, they have
heist
to go somewhere. They have to find the
Yeah.
plans or extract the person. It's the same.
Yeah.
Same formula. It's definitely a war film.
But in
rather
the
than-
heist movie, they usually plan things.
I was about to say that.
They usually plan the
I was
shit
about
out
to
of
say
it.
that. That's what was missing.
Yeah,
No,
I
the
meant-
plans were on Scarif. They had to get them.
yes, we don't. Yes,
We don't need a plan. We're going for the plan.
Yes.
What do you mean? Who's on
Idiots.
second?
Yeah, that
we'll
was
get the
interesting.
plan when we get there.
Yeah.
We will devote an
was
entire rebel
it
fleet
actually
right
the-
now because somebody ran off.
That was the plan.
So this movie will probably get a prequel at some time.
It is a prequel.
Which was the plan. It's the planning movie
There is
for this. That's what's missing out of this one. We just keep getting.
They're all just sitting
smaller.
around a table, scratching their heads.
What were you saying, Tom?
No, they definitely ran off half-cocked, and that was a bit weird. That.
Yeah.
But that's common for kiddie films, I think. That the hero will get the support from his friends no matter what.
Yeah.
And so here we have them running off and stealing a ship, and Mon Mothma, quietly smiling to herself when she hears the news that somebody's doing something, even though we were voted down by the rest of the Republic or Senate. And then we have Admiral Mon Calamari, Admiral the blue Mon Calamari.
He was awesome.
guy.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. Yeah, he just. Yep, we will send the entire fleet up there and rescue those guys. We don't know what they're doing there and why they ran. How good their plan was, but the story is very straightforward. Now, as Dan said, we've been burned previously when the prequel films came, and George Lucas tried to make the story so convoluted that to this day I still haven't understood it.
Yeah.
But you look at the original 3 films, it's understandable. You can follow along the film. There's no.
Yep. Well, certainly no trade negotiations and
No tax.
No
in there.
taxation. No. So this is.
votes of no confidence in the Senate and kids movie. And he came out and made a statement the other day that Star Wars is for 12-year-olds.
Yes.
Which your Star Wars movies or this one?
Yeah.
12-year-old tax consultants.
Yeah, and I, in some way, I think this story is, it's good that we didn't get a lot of that. We didn't get a lot of the unnecessary politics of it, just except for that one scene which reminded me of that scene in Braveheart, where he's trying to convince the nobles to get on side. They're going to take on the English. Yeah, that's that scene that happened there, where you've got a couple of the factions that weren't on board. It's no, this is our time to walk away and not get involved. And then you got one or two key people that know all we need is one good sort of kick in the ghoulies of the bad guy, and everyone will go, oh, maybe they can be hurt, sort of thing. And I thought that squeezing that all into one scene was good, because they could have broken that off into fractured little scenes, especially this scenario with the general that it has this secret sort of thing going on with Cassian. No, kill him, which he sort of blurts out to everyone later on. But I like the fact it was light on that.
Yeah.
And focused more on the group. But yeah, the group was a little bit too many people to...
At the end, it was because they have... Just 2 seconds ago, 2 pictures ago, there was the poster, and you have the main characters, which is about 8 or so. There's Jin, there's Cassian, there's K2SO, there's the defecting pilot, then there is Saul Guerrera, who I don't know why he's on the poster. Maybe, and then there's the dude who's not a Jedi, and there's Gunny McShootface.
Yep.
And then Director Krennic.
Yep.
And so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. But then at the end battle, suddenly they have this crew on board, and they're giving them their moments.
Yeah.
They're introducing some other
that's
commando
there was
guy.
there was a young black guy that was up in... He was hiding out with the pilot in the ship.
Yeah, and they get their little
and I remember
stories.
thinking,
they get followed.
Why are you getting screen time?
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea who you are. Are you related to somebody or...
I don't know why Gunny McGunface and the not Jedi dude didn't wholly steal all of the scene there and essentially make those guys just more rebel stormtroopers.
Yeah, trooper number 3.
Yeah, they just run off this way, and he says, "Attack that! Follow me! Go this way! Grab that thing!"
Yeah, and there seemed to be a lot of them, even though that ship was pretty small. There was quite a lot of them there. So the development of the characters, basically, we found there was a little too much development. Yeah.
I thought that there was...
Or a little too much attempted development.
I don't think so.
I think what you might be saying, perhaps, is attempted development of too many characters.
Yes.
When really it was a bit shallow. We didn't get a lot of background on a lot of people. And if you think about a character arc...
Yep.
Who changed?
Well, I think I think you'll understand what I'm saying when I say it. I think Cassian
changed?
is the main character of this film. Even though it follows her because it's her dad and whatever, really he's the interesting guy. He's the compelling character. Now, it goes to one of the reasons for that. Let me bring up... do you know who he is? Have you ever heard of him before? Diego Luna? Diego Luna is... he's a Spanish megastar. Now, he's 27 producing credits. He's got 6 directing credits, 53 films he's been in, or acting credits. He's written 3, and these are, let's see some of his... so you can see there, he's prolific. He's cranking out 3 or 4 movies a year, and he is considered in Spain as... You remember Trudeau that got brought out to star in the Close Encounters? It's the French guy. That's his name, Trudeau.
Don't know.
You know the French guy.
I know the
in
French guy.
Close Encounters.
Yeah.
He was the same, but in French cinema.
Okay.
He was this guru. He was a director, writer, actor. He was a who's who. He was one of the most awarded. That's who this guy is in Spanish theatre. And a lot of this stuff here is elite level.
Yep.
And so he comes on board with this incredible acting power, and he commands the screen when he's on screen. And I thought it was fantastic. The moment a good guy in a Star Wars film shoots another guy in the back at close quarters, like he's got his hand on his shoulder, shoots him in the back. That's a moment in a Star Wars film that you've never seen before. And I looked at that, to me, woke me up. It's like, oh, hang on, what are we watching here? And it was awesome. From that point forward, if I was following him throughout the film, it might have been a different film for me, because I was on board with him a lot more than whiny Mick don't want to play pants. that throwaway line where she says, no matter where someone says, no matter where you go, there will always be a imperial flag flying. It's okay if you don't look up.
Yeah.
Which is trying to establish that she's not made of the right stuff, whereas he's made of the right stuff.
And it was good, and to see that that the rebellion isn't squeaky clean. They're not made of pure,
It's war.
super,
She starts out in prison. I mean, she has been fighting and
Since
rebelling
she
all
was
her
6.
life.
And he's the same. He's
But
been fighting
she-
since she was 6. She's been surviving. That's how I heard it said the other day, and it made a bit of sense to me.
I think she's pretty used to being a rebel, being
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't do, who looks after herself. And she was taken in by Sol Guerrera. So her mother gets shot and she hides away in a deep little hole. And there's this shot where she gets rescued by him, and she, you look up to the thing, and she looks up at him and gets rescued. And at the end, when they have that conversation, when he talks about the flags, and she says, "Oh, it's okay if you don't look up," and his reaction is a bit offended at that point. She was, I think,
Yeah.
referring to that point. She was actually insulting him at the time when she said that, rather than saying, "I'm," because she's not used to cowering in front of the Empire. She's used to fighting.
Yeah.
But she was picking on him because he deserted her. He left her somewhere on a planet.
And so he was definitely driven, right? He was totally driven. He was like eyes on target, and he was
invested.
Yeah. But she, just didn't seem as focused.
Especially once the dad died as well. Like, it was hard to find.
And even when she, gets the message, and then, she then becomes sort of incorporated into the whole bigger picture. Yeah, I still didn't feel that, she was leading the charge. She was like being dragged along because I'm, have to do this or something or other.
No, I think
Dad
because
told me to.
she wanted, that was her motivation, was find Dad, to get Dad back out of there.
Yeah.
That was, and she wasn't really joining the rebellion. She was in it for getting her dad.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that because she doesn't trust anyone, she takes her hand weapon. She's not giving the hand weapon to Cassian, even though he wants it. So she's staying apart. She's not becoming part of the team, and she's in command. I could relate to that. I could see that she is, taking charge and commanding things because she does not want to just follow blindly people that she doesn't trust.
Mm-hmm. So just before we leave characters, who was your favourite character?
Oh, favorite?
You got to pick a favourite.
Oh, well, I think I'll pick the one that everybody picks, which is the robot.
The K2.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. Although I love the Shooty McGunn guy.
Oh, he had nothing to contribute.
Man, he was a good shot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great.
He was
Fantastic.
awesome. He was awesome.
So was K2SO when it came down to it. But I also like the Defector. I think that was a great addition. Having a pilot.
Yeah.
And he was, I don't know, he played well. The actor played him well. He was he was just a dude. He was just a pilot. He knew how to lay some cable and flew a spaceship, and that's all he was ever asked to do.
I think there's some
He was scared
behind the scenes. Yeah. He
scared.
seemed sketchy, about, and plus he had his brain sort of tampered with by the big octopus thing.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing some behind the scenes where he sent Gareth Edwards, the director, 30 little videos of him portraying that character in 30 different ways. And I think he was in New York or something, and he had an afternoon or an evening to himself or whatever, and he just kept sending. He managed to get the phone number of the director.
Oh, this is before he was
Before he
auditioned.
was given the
This was his
role.
audition,
Yeah,
essentially.
and he just kept sending these videos. Or I could play it like this, and he just does this monologue to his mobile phone.
So he must have had the script.
and then sends it, or I could do it like this, and he keeps sending these 30 different performances until finally someone, I think the director wrote back and said, "Look, you've got it, just calm down." But yeah, I thought he was a pretty good character as well. But yeah, you can't go past K2 for an emotionless. Well, there was a lot of emotion in a droid that has no eyebrows or no standard centers for emotion.
He used to have eyebrows. In the original first designs,
really?
they actually gave him eyebrows because they wanted him to.
Mm.
And then it didn't fit. It wasn't Star Warsy.
Yeah.
Star Wars, no droid in Star Wars has eyebrows. Or they all have these blank, stiff. And so what they did, they gave him the eyes that could rotate. They could swivel. Unlike C-3POs, which are stiff, his can actually rotate a little bit, and the pupils can change. So he can do a little. Quite a lot.
It.
He can do quite a lot with that.
You can
actually.
sense the performance there. Plus, there was a lot of these moments where his head was put in poses that was so non-robot. He was sort of driving, and he would turn, and he wouldn't talk He wouldn't face the person he was talking to because they're back here,
Mm.
but he would turn like this. And that's so human, isn't
Alan
it?
Tudyk took lessons from mime I think it was mime actors. Yeah, I think it was mime actors. Preparation
Yeah.
for this role, so that he could actually use his entire body to tell the emotion, because he
Yeah.
couldn't use his face.
Well, this is his second film as a very famous robot.
What was his other one?
Oh yeah,
He
iRobot.
was the robot in iRobot.
Oh, yeah.
And he was brilliant in that as well. He brought that robot to life through his performance on the set and the capture performance. So he's no dummy.
He had something to do with Big Hero 6. Oh, a TV series as well. Well, anyway.
He might have been a character in Big Hero 6.
Yeah.
He does a lot of voice acting.
Yeah.
Tudyk's awesome. He's got a series that I haven't seen yet, where he plays an actor, a sci-fi actor that does the circuits, the signing circuits and whatever. So sort of taking a piss out of the character that he's actually become. So now he's actually doing this. So I mean, it was his claim to fame was the before this film was Firefly.
Yeah.
He was the pilot in Firefly.
Saw.
Yeah. And if not for him, Firefly would have been a very different movie as well. He brings a lot, I think. So yes, I have to agree, Tom, that he was my favourite as well. Did you have a favourite character in the film?
Well, Tom went for the easy answer. I'll go for the other easy answer. My favourite was Darth Vader.
I was going to say he's got to be on the short list because we see him like we've never seen him before.
Oh, in his vulnerable state in the Baghdad tank.
Well, no. Well, that yes, absolutely.
In the
that.
bathtub.
Like father, like father, like son, like father. Didn't the son get in the back to tank as well?
Yeah, Luke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Luke does.
that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I saw a video the other day where someone took the scene where he's carnage in the hallway, and then very next shot is him facing off against Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what happened here?
yeah.
He pulled two hamstrings, and it's like,
Yeah.
But even
because
in
they
the
really are just waving,
Just low on
They're
batteries.
just waving it at each other, and every now and then they go.
no, but even in the hallway thing, I thought they did that because he's like you saw him, Anakin versus Obi-Wan on Mustafar, the
Yeah.
final big battle where you have two Jedi in the prime of their life, the best amongst the best trained Jedi, and you see the backflips and you see them doing somersaults in the air and the most acrobatic maneuvers.
Yep.
And now he's Darth Vader with chopped off arms and chopped off legs, and everything is sort of a bit stiff, and he's old.
48 or
And so
something like
in that, even though it was awesome, the lightsaber turns on and there's the rebel soldiers wetting their pants, he doesn't move much.
No,
he
you're
uses
right.
his
He
force.
uses
He
the
just
force a
walks
lot,
in, just
doesn't he?
slams him up, slams him in half, and then cuts a bit. He doesn't move much.
Yeah, you might be
he's
right,
already
because
stiff.
when he meets Obi-Wan, really there's no point in using the Force against somebody that's so strong with the Force. It really comes down to
Red Letter
Well-
Media have the answer to this.
Yeah.
They take the highly choreographed Phantom Menace fight with Obi-Wan and
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon against Darth Maul, and it's like this highly choreographed 1 2 1 2 double do 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 do
Yeah.
do 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 do, and then they cut to Darth Vader and Obi-Wan just kind of staring at each other,
Yeah.
and he says, it's not about that. It's not about that. And the laser sword duel in New Hope is not about that.
Yeah.
It's about those two characters like staring each other down and
Well,
past
I
history.
reckon
And
if you get the audio track from Phantom Menace for the lightsabers, and you take the audio track for the lightsabers from Star Wars, one would sound like "Woom, woom, 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 woom," and the other one would be
yeah,
that really cool resting lightsaber sound.
yeah.
So here's a theory I have.
Yeah.
And I developed that when I saw the Revenge of the Sith, or whatever. Yeah, the last one where the Chancellor gets arrested by 4 Jedi, and he immediately mows the first 2 down without them even turning on their lightsabers, right? And the way I'm sure there are actually people who know exactly how that went down. How can he possibly do that? But my theory in my little mind is that the Jedi, because they have telekinesis, so he actually telepathically freezes those guys. They can't move. He's got them sort of bound, and before they can free themselves, They just he
Yep.
prevents them from actually moving, and that is my theory for Obi-Wan against Darth Vader back then. They're doing it in their mind. They're using their, they're too old and too. They're just sort of slowing each other down. They're all sort of moving through honey.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to
Using the
be
Force.
as. It doesn't even have to be as explicit as they're using the Force. It can just be that they're just like meeting each other, and it's like you again, and they're just like thinking,
Well, Lucas broke his own rule, right, which he's done many, many times. He came out with a statement very early on that the laser swords, they weren't commonly known as lightsabers. As much as they were called sort of laser swords, they had so much power that to wield it took two hands, and they weigh a lot because you're literally harnessing this power, and that's why you have to use two hands, and that's why it's not a very
swishy.
and so he explained it. He explained it a long time ago, 20 years ago. He explained it, and then he came out and totally pissed all over that. And he was the guy that came up with. He was the guy that greenlit the fight scenes from, and made them into ninjas and things like that.
I'll give you another angle.
I liked this.
So like two-handed weapons.
Samurai.
That just,
he went from samurai to ninja.
Right, exactly. And I'll give you another
And he
angle.
should have stayed with samurai.
I'll give you another angle. You know how Lucas did take some elements from Kurosawa,
Yeah.
right? From
Seven Samurai.
not from. Well, it might have been from Seven. That's not the one that I'm thinking of. Oh shit! And I can't remember the one that I'm thinking of. Where he got R2D2 and C3PO from.
Yeah, the lowest on the food chain tells the story.
Yeah,
Through the
Two
eyes,
peasants and there's a
through
giant
the eyes
war
of the
going on.
lowest common denominator.
There's another one, Yojimbo Sanjuro. There's essentially a bodyguard thing. It's a kind of a western. Anyway, the way that ends is with the two main samurais that we've been following through the whole thing, and they're both very good. They're both very, very good, and they can both cut down 10 guys in a street fight. And the end battle between them is they just stand in front of each other, and they just look at each other, and then Kurosawa just cuts back and forward and back and forward, and the tension rises, and they don't move at all. Until one, and it's like the showdown with the Western where one tries to pull his gun, but it's with sword. So one of them tries to pull his sword, and our hero just and just kills him.
Once.
Game over.
Yeah, and you've just described the last scene from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Yeah.
Whereas they throughout the film, all three of them, them face off. They're brilliant. All three of them are killers, and they can take out 14 guys at
That's
at
right.
once.
And none of them are
But
running.
right at the end, it all comes down to these super close-ups, and then the big wide shot, the super close-up, and then it's one shot.
Who makes the first mistake is the one who's going to lose. Yeah, and they're not ninjas swinging off the buildings and
But I think that sums it up, doesn't it? That George Lucas turned samurais into ninjas, and that's why we have a problem with the mismatch. That's why Darth Vader potentially doesn't link up there. I think it's pretty close. It's okay. It's not like he was acting like jumping around and he wasn't Yodaing it up.
There's another problem with the Darth Vader suit is this doesn't have that much flexibility actually, and even when he's getting energetic and you watch him, because of the head and the helmet, he kind of walks like a.
Well, this whole thing is all one piece.
Yeah,
This bit that goes up his neck and across here is all one piece.
Yeah, it's made for a more for more subtle use of the Force.
You'd love that.
Yes. More of that, less of the hi-ya!
I need a suit that's good for that.
Yeah.
Or in this, what was it like? You did this in this?
Yeah.
That's right.
So many memes out of that. Mine is this big, but it's the cliched phrase that he uses when he does that too. Don't choke on your ambitions. From my memory of the prequels, I couldn't remember Anakin being so pithy and witty, isn't it? Wasn't that Obi-Wan that had all of the one-liners?
I think he gets a lot of audiobooks in when he's hanging in that Bacta tank.
That's a good one, I must remember.
He practices them in the goo. Okay, so let's talk about the film itself. We talked earlier. Let's move away from story a little bit before we move into technical. Let's talk about the film as a viewing experience. Was it a well-made film?
I was watching a video I think this is a well-made film. I was watching a video, and this had who's the director again? Gareth Edwards, talking about how he was making the film. And this was coming back to something we were talking about before the show, because it was about why were some of the shots in the trailer not in the film, in the final film. And we've already talked a little bit about doing reshoots and stuff. And he was saying how he was making the film is that they were filming it, writing it, editing it, cutting it, reshooting it, writing it, filming it, editing it, cutting it, all at the same time in this continual loop. And one of the things that he said was the way that he made the film, and we were talking about this before, is that he would pick out visual images. And one of them, obviously, is Darth Vader up the end of that corridor in the smoke with the... Okay. And then he'd pick out another visual image and another image, and then he'd get his crack squad of story guys to link all of these cool pictures together.
They basically created a story reel made up of images taken from all sorts of movies. And the images represent either spatial relationship, camera angle. So basically they cut together an animatic using shots from all these different films, not necessarily Star Wars films. They were from all over the place. Wouldn't you love to get your hands on that? That would be
this shot there
sort of
is
geeks.
from just there where we had the guy with the attack helicopter.
Yep.
So there are YouTube videos where people compare them to other films. This one's comparing to, I don't know, Thin Red Line, Hamburger Hill, something where people... Vietnam War. Vietnam War film. There are others where several shots are compared to shots in Alien.
Yep.
Aliens. And then, of course, from old Ralph McQuarrie concepts, especially the Darth Vader's Citadel.
Yeah, the castle at the lava castle. That was an old Ralph McQuarrie original.
And one of the best shots, I think, because Gareth Edwards is so great at doing these. Yeah, putting the camera somewhere and getting a great shot. There's these. We just had one there with on your screen with the Death Star looming, as seen through a planet's atmosphere, and is rising huge above that scale. That is one of my favorite shots in the film.
One of my favorite shots of the Death Star is one where they look up at the Death Star like this sort of hero pose. Yeah. I think it's one of the ones on the spaceship.
Yeah.
And they're looking up at that big disc, and it's not looking at you. It's you're underneath it. Yeah. And well, not this one, but this type of thing. A nice big close up of the Death Star.
I think that the Death Star would have to be one of my favourite characters from the film.
It's
for that reason,
such good shots.
We got to see it in so many different unique ways. The eclipse, where it took perfectly. It didn't fire on Jeddah City until it was perfectly in over the sun, and then you see this green beam. So you're literally seeing from the ground the Death Star attack. Yeah. And no one's ever seen that before.
Yeah.
So it's outstanding.
So that's, I think, that's one of the strengths, is that visual way of conceiving the story. And so anyway, that's why things in the trailer kind of didn't make it into some of the things, because they kind of still didn't really know. They were still making it. It seems a bit of a crazy process, to be honest. I don't know if you'd get a Pixar, animation made that way.
You don't go wrong with having a great shot, though, Dan. If you're as a director, or you compose your shot, that does not need to get cut from the film. Stuff that needs to get cut is story stuff, which is separate from the visual establishing shots. So and that's where these are great visual images of the Death Star, but no matter how you restructure the story, it's unlikely that they ever have to get cut out of the film. They are awesome things, and one of the best shots is the opening shot to the film.
Yeah, I love that.
Because you're so used to a big Star Destroyer coming, and they all start other Star Wars films. They all start in space with a moon and a planet, and then a Star Destroyer comes in, and he pokes total fun at that with a big triangle coming from the top, and everyone goes, "What kind of weird spaceship is this?"
And
then he flips it and puts you the tiniest little spaceship a long way away, just going across the surface of a
beautifully created. That the whitish ship is flying across the dark part of the rings parallel to the actual Terminator or the shadow from the planet that was cutting across it. So it's flying it's flying on the dark side, and you don't see the rings that it's flying over, but you can see the absence of stars. So they continue. You had to look 2 or 3 times to work out, what am I looking at here? And then when you realise, this is so really cool.
Yeah. No, that is really cool.
And I did like that. So so it was a well-made film. I agree with that premise as well. The lensing, what he did, I think I've got it here. They used digital stock, so it was an Arri Alexa 65 that it was shot on, but they sourced some original lenses from the original Star Wars days. And so they had the Hawk 65 lenses and the Panavision APO Panatar lenses. So it has a feel, right? So realistically, when we look at film, there's the lens, there's the stock, there's the development process, right? Now, when it's digital, the development process is a lesser part of it. So the lens becomes pretty important. So when you're shooting in 1970, 1980 sort of lens technology onto a digital medium, that's the closest you're probably ever going to get, shooting digital, to that original feel. And I think they pulled it off. Like, I really do think they pulled it off. I didn't see a lot of noise being added to the... You know how I've often complained about they add noise in post to make it feel filmic? I didn't see any of that when we watched it. So I think that lensing's decision went a long way to making something feel like it could exist in the timeline and without too much of a difference there. You know what? The one example that I'll give you that I think it was a well-made film, remember when Krennic parked his car way over there at the start of the film? Yeah? At first I thought, well, that's weird. And then I started to think, people don't do weird with $200 million budgets. Why would you do that? And then you think, Krennic's not there to abduct them. He's there to entice them back. He wants them to come back to the family. You know what I mean? He doesn't... Yes, he turns up with some badasses behind him, and he is a maniac, right? But he sets it up. He puts distance. He doesn't land in their front doorstep and kick the door in. He gives them lots of time to see him coming and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a common sense about it. But by doing that, you get these wicked opportunities to do some really good establishing shots, some really good... The big strip of green, like he's farming some kind of organic shit on some planet that clearly is not growing anything, and he's got it growing in this strip, you know, with the evaporators and whatever. That makes for some really contrasting, cool stuff, just because they got him to park a little bit further away, and we got to experience that. And
those strips, that particular part of the film was shot in Iceland, and there are no green strips, and they didn't put the vegetation there when they filmed it. They added all that sort of stuff afterwards digitally.
Did they really? Even the stuff they were standing in?
No, probably not the stuff they were standing in. But you have
patch.
some close-up shots of the characters, and you see all the, several hundred, the big shots where you have huge areas of green foliage that was added digitally.
Yeah, and it gave an excellent opportunity to, just see those guys, coming across, and you can set up some things like, inevitability, that these guys are coming and you can't stop it, and it's going to happen, and whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to do it soon.
And we all have to ignore that the establishing shot is Krennic's ship flying. We see her running, the little girl is running, and then over her shoulder is Krennic's ship flying at about 60 or 70 feet.
Yeah, that's right.
And we all have to ignore the fact that, did no one in the ship see the little girl running across the black landscape?
Now we're landing the ship. There's lots of buttons to be pushed.
Anyway.
Speaking of buttons to be pushed, I like how they kept the the design aesthetic
the look,
of everything, and I like how the spaceship still had the 240 P vector graphics,
and the the Empire has the exact same graphics but red,
Yeah, that's right.
and the good guys have got the green, and the Empire's got the red. And
This is a universe where like Windows was never invented.
Yeah.
You know, they just never got off the ground very far with computers. and
technically, it's almost like they're in the Dark Ages, wasn't it? Because we couldn't just Skype it up to the ship. You know,
yeah.
we had to climb up a tower. People died and all this shit. It was all about getting some data from here to here. So clearly, they all used Telstra as well.
Yeah, they're on dial-up.
It was incredible how much of a problem the whole comms thing was, and to ultimately wind up on a disc,
on a little
floppy
disc.
disk.
And they transfer it. They beam it up, and it arrives very quickly. And then they transfer it onto little disc, and she transfers it onto R2D2. So the data pack can't be.
Yeah.
You know, they.
Well, if you look at it in New Hope when they download it, it's just like this vector graphic for like a Death Star that rotates.
120 kilobytes.
Yeah.
With some arrows.
Yeah, it's got like 32 polygons on it.
It's this big hard drive with a single 128 kilobyte file.
Yeah.
It's basically a sphere.
Yeah. You could have just drawn
You guys
it.
take it from there.
See this big long trenchy thing?
Yeah.
That's it there.
Yeah, it's a sphere.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit funny, the whole tech side of things. All right, so let's talk technical. Let's talk positives on the technical side of things. I'll put it straight out there. The floating, or the whole Jeddah sequence in general. So, first of all, we get to see a Star Destroyer hovering there above the city, which I thought was cool, and casting shadow over the whole city like that. But the explosion, you know, when the Death Star takes out Jeddah, for everything from how the beam hit it, all the way through to how the land was coming up in that big wave, till we ultimately see it from space, where it's right up in right out of the atmosphere. And when you see that atmospheric shot, you can see the clouds. They've got upper atmosphere clouds in a ring, but out from the site, all the clouds are all different. It's almost like the explosion affected the atmosphere around that area. Stunning.
Yeah, they certainly put a lot of detail into that. And if I had to sort of suggest which was my favourite, VFX shot, I suppose, I was thinking about this earlier today, and it was the big nuclear explosion. What about you?
The nuclear explosion at Jeddah.
At Jeddah.
Well, yeah, both of them really.
Not the romantic one at the end.
Yeah, the happy one at the end.
The one that just took off. I loved the fact that Krennic is on this platform, that they deliberately left him alive. He's on this platform that just happens to catch a glancing blow of the main beam from the Death Star before the beam hits the base over here on the horizon. And you just see the top of the tower just getting taken out. And you know, he was on that. He was on that thing.
I thought they didn't milk that enough. They should have
showed him
stand up, dust himself off,
stuck glowing green.
Yeah. and then look around and then like, oh shit.
With a little green laser pointer on his forehead.
Yeah. Because he quite literally got hit point blank by a Death Star. The biggest weapon in the universe.
It's an amazing death.
Yeah, they could have milked that quite a bit more, especially if he didn't realise, and he's talking on the phone or something.
Pause on that. That is Jeddah City.
Yeah,
and it's such an odd place to put a city, isn't it? You have the entire desert, but then you put it on top of a very limited amount of space. So why are the walls so high?
I'm not sure.
Well, before we leave,
I know it's a Jedi sacred place.
That pillar at the end.
Big one.
Is the pole? It's like the two towers in the Lord of the Rings. This is the Light Tower, and Darth Vader's citadel has the same shape.
Oh, it does too.
And that's the dark equivalent to this Jedi temple here. But cities grow, and this city cannot grow in width, right?
No, that's right.
So as more and more people go, they either have to grow up, which is lifts, every generation lifts the city a little bit higher off the ground, which might explain those really, really tall walls. Or they have to dig into this entire mountain,
Okay, little quick history, trivia thing. Masada in Israel. I mean, this is actually real in the sense that... Masada in Israel looks exactly like this.
I love the story.
And living on top of it were a bunch of religious dudes who
and the Romans built the ramp. You can still see. You can still see the ramp from space.
Yes, they had to build a friggin' ramp to
Romans,
get up there.
they wanted to get them out.
Is that a problem?
No, well, it's Windows 10 trying to get forceful with their updates.
So we're still broadcasting.
Yeah, we're still okay.
Come on, you want to do it. You want to do an update?
You want that update? You know you want that update. Fuckers. So yes, no, the whole Jeddah sequence was pretty cool. It's from memory. It was shot all in Jordan. There's Wadi Rum in Jordan, which was Planet Jeddah, and Jordan in general. So there was a lot of sites in Jordan that they shot a lot of this stuff. It's perfect for it. Lots of canyons, lots of dirt. You know, not a lot of organic going on there.
I like the occupation, imperial occupation of this very dense town with narrow streets. So the tanks, you know, the tank has to squeeze itself through that town. Why they need a tank in such a confined space, that never was clear to me. You can't even turn around the bloody thing. The AT-STs and the Viper droid.
Did you see this guy get his head blown off at any point, or is that just...
No, he has no head.
What?
He's one of the... he's actually in the... There's a book about the visuals of the film. And it has characters explained. He is in the book. He has no head. He's been... he's just that thing at the top. There are servants in the Star Wars universe. They're the decraniated, they're called. And they are... You know how Lobot has the computer that it just enhances his mathematics?
Yeah.
Well, here they're decraniated, and actually Dr. whatever, the friend from Walrus Man, Ponda Baba's friend, Dr. Ezra, Esri, whatever. He's a you wouldn't think by looking at him, but he's a surgeon, a beauty surgeon. What's it?
Really?
Cosmetic surgeon.
Really?
And he performs...
This is the guy that gets killed by Obi-Wan in Star Wars?
Yeah, arm chopped off. He gets killed. I think Ponda Baba just gets his arm chopped off. Or something. Yeah. But he... So that guy on the right, behind the tank, is a police guy. And he is actually on Jeddah because he's trying to arrest those two guys.
These two guys?
No, Ponda Baba and Professor Dr. Mac Shittyface. And
there's a lot going on.
There are characters that are actually just in this little shot there, the guy without the head. But in the book, he gets a whole page, one A4 page dedicated to his backstory. So they must have had plans for him in the film. Yeah, there are shots like this with the rebels. That was never in the film.
No,
so
I can't remember.
They must have had shots planned for characters that they didn't use, just like they did with The Force Awakens. They're action figures that you can buy from characters that never made it.
Yeah.
Well,
you can buy there's a snow speeder, because there's an entire chase sequence that happens on the snow planet with Rey and Finn. Remember, they have to go somewhere else to shut something down that allows Han and Chewie to get in to lay the explosives.
Yeah, vaguely.
Well, to go and do that, there was a whole speeder chase, bike, two-seater speeder. You can buy the toys,
right?
But you can't see it. There's nothing in the film. So I think that happens a lot, Tom.
That does happen a lot, yeah. It makes it interesting because everybody in this film, a lot of people said, "Oh, this is going to be the film where we see the Bothans." Bothans for the first time, which people got confused because Bothans stole the plans for the second Death Star, not for the first one.
Yeah.
But in the first trailer, where you just see this huge character with this hairy arm, that was what I thought. That when I saw the trailer for the first time, that must be a Bothan from behind, because they're big, hairy beasts.
The big white, hairy ones?
No, you didn't see any Bothans in this film. We still haven't seen them in any of the movies, I think.
So I swear there was a shot here that...
There's one of Saul Guerrera's cronies. It's a big, sort of looks like a Wampa a little bit. Wampa with a face mask.
Yeah.
That creature, but that's not a Bothan, no.
There was a shot with an X-Wing crashed in the street. Where was it? Here.
That one.
Yeah. There was a lot of this going on in Jeddah.
Yeah, where did that X-Wing come from?
I think there was obviously some kind of battle.
There's nothing mentioned
probably the battle for Jeddah.
Well, we just saw pilots being taken prisoner, and I assume that was on Jeddah.
That must have been part of that, yeah.
So that's all some backstory thing that was cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did we think of the Death Troopers? I thought they were pretty cool. I
Yeah.
liked what they did with the audio. For that you couldn't really
Made them more menacing.
Yeah, you couldn't
so
really
much more.
understand that there was this mechanical sort of
And the fact that they're so
computerized-
thin and skinny,
Yeah.
emaciated,
Yeah.
they looked freaky. They looked scary.
I don't like their faces.
No?
You tell them that in their face.
They've
I
got
thought
that
they-
big grill on the front, and that doesn't work for me. Look at this. Go back to a stormtrooper, and you got this kind of shark mouth
Yep.
sort of dude,
Mm.
and then even Darth Vader has that kind of motive. But if you go to these guys, it just looks. See that thing, the central grill?
Yep. Looks
Not-
almost a
not a
bit like a
fan.
Cylon in the middle there. They had that grill in the middle of the face as well. So where did we get to? So technical moment. What about you, Tom? We've said Jeddah. Was there a technical, something technical in the film? I did like the rain sequence in the chasms at night, the way they had to fly literally. I didn't know how it was going to work. You got X-wings coming in and attacking the platform there in such a tight, confined space, but it seemed to work not too. I mean, that sequence was pretty. It was pretty full on. I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it's a scary little rainy planet, but it's nothing too. I mean, the memorable pieces are the big sunshine shots.
Yeah.
Technically, I have one more thing to add to Jeddah. Did you know that the models that they used for the AT-STs in Jeddah, and also the Viper droid, were taken from Star Wars Battlefront?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Straight out? Like
No, not straight out. They
assets.
took the models and then they based these models off those. So they modified them for film. They did modify them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There seems to be quite a link now between ILM and game, game techniques and things like that.
You
We've
get a
mentioned
3D artist to make one of these models, and they'll put a huge amount of effort in it to get it right. So you might as well not reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, if you have something that, I mean, just like with Tarkin, they had his mask. They had his
original scan, original
well, his mask
cast.
the cast from his head, which they based on, and they sculpted him in Mudbox, and Leia as well.
Did they really?
Yeah, not
Mudbox?
everyone uses ZBrush. No, that was all done in Mudbox.
That explains everything.
I get the feeling that this was a bit of a shoestring sort of a budget.
I don't know.
Well, it is that was very expensive to redo Tarkin, and they had a big budget. But at the same time, Gareth Edwards is somebody who's very used to managing his budget. He's made some really impressive films with very little money. And he's the guy who films Godzilla and then still runs off an afternoon with his Canon D5 and shoots something on the backlot on the Canon D5 and puts that in the film.
In the film, yeah.
So, and he had the choice. There was they were making a model of K2SO, just a head puppet, so that they could use it on set. And at some point, he made that decision whether he should have that or whether he should use that money in post production. It can't be very expensive to make, the robot head. It could be a few $1,000s. So if he has to make those sort of decisions, am I going to use that money here or do I save it for later?
Yeah.
Then you're right. He certainly is frugal.
I think it's in his makeup. I told you that he single-handedly did the visual effects for a 2-part Attila the Hun BBC documentary.
Yeah. You were saying,
And like single-handedly. And this movie, this documentary had battle scenes. It had tens of thousands of warriors around campfires with tents and things like that. And he's just a guru at looking at the elements and being able to put them together to get the shot and keeping the costs down. And it must be hard. It takes that out of somebody when you give them 200 million. Yeah.
Did you think that the just if we stay on just visual effects just for a bit more, did you think that the spaceship scenes at the end were too much? Because one of the no. One of the criticisms that I had, and I think other people had as well, was from the original. Not the original, the prequels.
Yeah.
I think in like the second one, maybe, I can't remember. The spaceship scenes were just too much. There was just 1,000 ships, and they're all going in different directions, and there's more laser beams and explosions than you can actually process in your mind.
That's the start of the third film.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith. And do you know who directed that?
Who?
Spielberg.
Oh, did he?
The opening,
That scene,
the opening sequence,
the opening sequence.
for Revenge of the Sith was directed by Spielberg.
Yeah.
Lucas has publicly stated that, and no one has ever said otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know what you get. You see, the
But that
opening
wasn't so
shot
bad
is like
here.
the opening shot is like just 2 spaceships from New Hope, and is that equally as impressive as 5,000 spapeships?
I'm with you, man.
It was down. It was.
They
it was
joke
reduced.
about it.
It wasn't so bad in this one at the end.
That's
of the
where
thing.
I'm
and
getting to.
we got our hero shots of some Y-wings flying in and dropping some bombs, and we
Yeah.
needed to see Gavin Drace and some of the rebel pilots that we get to see that are ultimately going to die at the Death Star battle. So we needed to have focus on pilots and their ships, so we can make that connection to A New Hope.
Yeah.
And they didn't have too many
So no, I agree.
spaceships going on in this case.
And that's where I was going. I don't think they went overboard. They
I thought
put
it was good.
Yeah, they put in.
Yeah.
You know.
You knew
enough.
what everybody was doing. There was a planet there that sort of made it. They used the planet well to allow you to understand where in space everything is.
Yeah, true.
They sort of used
Yeah.
a false horizon. They didn't do that as well in Revenge of the Sith, which is what the one you're talking about. There's a running joke about Revenge of the Sith where the visual effects people said we threw everything at that sequence, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And there is an explosion where one of the pieces of debris is a kitchen sink, and it flies off and it secondary explodes on
There's your problem.
yeah. So that's literally visual effects people with their head up their own asses. They need to calm down a little
But
bit.
there was story points at the end that I still find confusing, and that is always an irk in my ribs.
In this one, or
Yeah, in this one. Now going back to Rogue One, in the end fight, because we sort of maneuvered our way to the end battle, is the planet-wide
the shield.
and the sphincter that holds it open.
Yes, the shield sphincter with the two
Doors,
the
the
two
two doors.
things that must be made of something thick or special or something. Because all they have to
Anti-shield.
do is come down like this and block off the shield, and everyone can go through.
So
on their merry
theory
way.
one is the sphincter itself is the shield generator.
Is the generator.
And then if you crash 2 Star Destroyers into it, it explodes, and therefore the shield goes down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if it is the shield generator, why does it have to have those bloody doors to keep it open?
Yeah.
Why don't just turn that off?
Just
in the
turn it
middle?
on and off. Yeah.
The other theory, more likely, is the shield generator is down somewhere on the ground, just like it is on Endor,
Yeah.
and the sphincter is really there fighting against the shield, keeping it open, just like it looks. In which case, you put two Star Destroyers through it, and that closes the shield. It does not open it. Plus, now you have 2 Star Destroyers raining down onto your heroes down below.
That's right.
Which would have been a pretty good shot, actually. For yes,
I love it. What did we think about that though? The stalled Star Destroyer being
Oh, the
driven
Hammerhead Corvette.
with the Hammerhead.
I laughed out loud when I saw that the first time in the movies. Oh, bring me a Hammerhead Corvette! And the thing comes and
Didn't
revs.
we pack about 4 of those just in case?
How good was he as a character though? He didn't have much in the film, but every time he was on film, you're like, yeah, I like this guy. He's good. He's good. We should fight.
It'd be good to have a beer with.
He was based on Winston Churchill.
Oh, really?
that
was
character.
it?
Yeah. When they designed him, when they went through how they should act him, they based that on
Yeah,
him.
that's a good decision.
I love the
fight them on the
I love
beaches.
the little the cockpit thing that he was sitting in where.
Glass bottom.
Yeah. And the transmission would come up from the planet and like
He looks down.
you go, "Oh," and he starts talking to them. He's talking to them through the glass floor. No, the
can see
radio's
you
over
down
there.
Oh, you look like ants.
yeah.
He's cool.
Yeah.
I reckon he's great. And then one of his underlings says, "We should get out of here." No, now is the time. Take it to the boys. and the movie needed a hero like that. Everybody was sort of not so much anti-hero, maybe a little bit anti-hero, but a very sort of downplayed, heroic all, but not in that bravado sense. And he had the bravado that was really needed, which you would have to have you need a general like that for the troops to follow. He's a General Patton, Winston Churchill sort of. I thought he was great. But yes, the sphincter thing is in some technical manual they'll release how that all works.
Maybe.
I thought it was good. I love the way that when the ships hit the the shield they skimmed off like ice. They exploded, and then all the bits skimmed across the surface of it. I thought that was pretty cool.
I remember as a child seeing Return of the Jedi in 1981 at the cinema, and they attack the Death Star, and they think the shield's down. And there's the shield where so Lando Calrissian is in charge of the Millennium Falcon. So, the shield's up, we're gonna break off our attack, and it's a trap. And I remember seeing X-wings hitting the shield and exploding.
Yep. Yeah. I saw
Yet
the same
now,
thing.
when I watch that film now, I don't see that.
No, they bounce and
So
break apart.
was that? It's not just my imagination that I remember that as a child. That's actually
No, there was some that exploded, and I think
To
some
watch it
ships
again.
that were a little bigger than an X-wing, didn't they? Was there some that couldn't pull
I have
up?
to rewatch it now again, but I'm pretty sure that just like that shot where there's B-wings attacking a Star Destroyer which explodes, which you saw on the package of the toys.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my memory is just faulty because I've seen it so many times on the package of the toys that I imagined that I saw it as a child. I was 10 years old. So did I see that really in the movie?
Yeah,
I
there's
imagine that
B-wings.
I did. Well, yes, but the shot where the B-wings take out a Star Destroyer, which is no longer in the movies if you see them now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I'm not sure if that was in the when I saw it originally in 1981 or if it's just my faulty imagination playing tricks.
Well, the shield, they could have learnt from their mistakes that this shield had its problems, so they upgrade, because this predates the Jedi shield,
Yes.
doesn't it? I wasn't aware that the Death Star for Jedi was 10 times larger than the Death Star from Star Wars. Did you
It was
know that?
larger. I don't know how much.
It's 10
how
times.
much.
I saw a really cool animation someone did the other day, and it starts with a human, a TIE fighter, and then it goes X-Wing, blah, blah, and it starts to build until it finally gets to... And there are stuff way bigger than it. This is all from sci-fi. Yeah, all of the ships and vehicles from sci-fi in order of scale. And they start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's these crazy large stuff from manga type, star blazers and all sorts of things that are huge, that are much bigger than a planet. But it had a Death Star like that from New Hope, and about that big was the one from Jedi. So I ran about
10 times the volume.
It was about 10 times
probably
the size.
twice the diameter, but 10 times the volume. You mean?
No, 10 times the size.
10 times the diameter.
Well, if it's 10 times the diameter, it's 10 times the size, isn't
It's bigger.
Well, there's size and volume. That it's different. If
its diameter was 10 times the diameter of
right.
the original.
Yeah.
So it was. I never knew that.
Wow,
Did you
no,
know
I
that?
didn't. I'm not sure that that's true. I have seen them compared, and I've seen that the Jedi Death Star was probably twice the diameter, or maybe 3 times the diameter of the original, but not 10 times. Did you know? Speaking of size, sorry, Dan. By the way, at spaceships and sizes, the calamari cruisers. You know the
Curved ones.
the curved sort of elongated cigars thing, and you know what the one that Admiral Akbar has in the Return of the Jedi? What its name is?
Mon Calamari.
No, that's
No,
the race.
That's the race.
Oh.
It's Home One, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and the story behind those calamari cruisers is that they are. So this is an underwater race, and these are the buildings that they used to live in, which they, when they left the planet, transformed into spaceships.
Oh, wow.
So that is their home. They live on those spaceships, and the reason it's called Home One is because that's his home.
There's
So they're houses.
There's
flying
some pretty
houses.
good episodes in the 2D Clone Wars, the 3D Clone Wars for Mon Calamari. That all happens underneath
Right.
the water with the Jedi and the war. There's a war going on, and then the battle droids come in, and there's this shark type character. That's
Is that where they Mon Calamari flee the
I think
flee
so.
the planet?
Yeah, I think so. Well, at least that's part of it. That war is what starts that process.
Right.
Um,
And do
Or-
they have the buildings there underwater? Do you see them? Do they see the cities?
Yeah.
Oh, there
well,
you go.
Well, you see buildings. I can't remember whether they look like those, but they
Mm.
probably would. They
Yeah.
would keep us saying the similar design sensibility, I would say.
Hopefully.
Okay, well, we need to touch on it, but we shouldn't harp on it.
Talking.
Both.
Tarkin and Leia.
Tarkin and Leia.
Respect.
Do we approve, disapprove?
I utterly approve
other?
out of pure respect for the ballsiness of doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, I approve.
Yeah, I think so too.
I've got a couple of videos here if you want to flick over to me.
I can.
So this is where we risk our... We don't need any audio. So...
Real versus CGI.
So this is Tarkin versus Tarkin.
Oh, okay.
So the video is not super good quality, but yeah, it just kind of shows the CGI Tarkin versus the...
So we have him here
Real
on talking to
Tarkin.
Krennic, and there's the real one from New Hope. And
No,
there is
no,
that's
no,
these are all CG.
there, right.
You failed.
Yeah, we haven't seen him yet.
I'm so embarrassed. I'm ashamed.
No, it's good when you get confused. I'll tell you what I think, and I've been watching this a little bit, sort of repeatedly. There are a few shots that are not as good as others.
Yep.
And it's those ones that destroy the illusion
Yep.
the most,
Yep.
right? I think on the whole it's actually very good, and I think Tarkin was done very well. But if you look, I don't know, I've been watching this back and forth, so you can see the real actor versus... Now, and this is going to... Because I've got the same thing for old Princess Leia over there.
Mm.
And I think I've noticed something. And what I've noticed is...
Quick, send an email to ILM. Let them know.
I will send them an email and I'll say, I've solved all your problems. Send me a check. The humans are more animated than the CG characters. This is my hypothesis. This human being moves faster
Yes.
and moves more abruptly and snappier
Yep.
than the CG character.
But then that's an acting choice because the CG character was
It might have a technical side.
Exactly. This is where I'm going.
But it might have a technical
The
side because
problem-
he's in a harness as well.
Exactly.
Do you want to whip around? And,
Right, are you going to ruin all the equipment? It's going to slide off your damn head.
Yep.
So look, let me do it because it sticks out more when we look at Princess Leia. Yeah, this one I think is just Leia, right?
Mhm.
So let's watch this very carefully. That's fine. That looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where
Yes.
it goes wrong.
Yep.
And it's the damn actor. It's not the CGI.
Mm.
It's the actor underneath. And-
because they
What I'll
got
tell
it.
you though, that what I just watched there with the sound down,
yeah.
that didn't look like CGI to me. It didn't look like Carrie Fisher, right? It looked like they found some lookalike
It would have been better if they had.
because what I just saw there didn't look CG.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually looked like a real person. It just didn't look like Carrie Fisher.
I swear it's the movement. Watch this, right? This
Yep.
is actually Carrie Fisher doing a bit of acting. Now watch her head.
Yeah. Okay.
Snap,
Yep.
snap,
Yep.
swing.
And look at the angle.
And it's always on a damn angle.
Yeah.
And she has this really cool stare. Watch, she'll shove her nose and chin forward at Darth Vader.
Geez, that's a bad helmet.
See here.
Yeah.
She sticks her head right forward and then nods and then opens her eyes and then swaps over to the other side of the thing. The other side. Now, so we'll just go back again and we'll look at Princess Leia CGI version. And we have to remember that there's actually a actor doing this.
Mm.
And what I'll say is her turn towards the camera is rigid and wooden. And her face, watch this, look at that. Her neck does not change its angle at all in relation to her shoulders, and her shoulders don't move.
Yep.
And then this facial expression here doesn't mean anything, is the other thing. If you look at her in the Death Star, she's screwed up her nose and she's staring at people and going, what the fuck? You know, this doesn't mean, this is not,
Yeah.
it doesn't convey any meaning. None of it does.
Yeah.
Is she happy or what?
Could be. It could be. It could be rather than a technical issue, that the performance itself was wooden.
Yes, and I think if you think about this is my new theory, the uncanny valley,
The likeness lowlands, as we call it on Rogue One.
what is it?
Likeness lowlands.
Likeness lowlands. It's difficult to say. The likeness lowlands, but the likeness lowlands does have an upside.
Yeah.
On the far end of the lowlands
foothills,
that goes up
Yeah.
towards realism, and I definitely think they're up on that other side, and they're going up. And I reckon it's the anyway, I reckon quite a bit of it specifically for Leia.
Because I haven't understood why they look a bit uncanny. Because they did such a good job with Benjamin Button, they did such a good job with Paul Walker in Fast and Furious. So technically they could be there. And I have always thought, well, what if Weta had done this instead of ILM? Would they have done a better job of it?
I don't know. Imagine it was Andy Serkis underneath,
or even
he wouldn't be afraid to be moving around and. I think they might have just the actor.
Maybe.
Does they're two very new actors. I know that the Princess Leia actor probably she was chosen because she looks
she
like.
was a
the
new
same with
one.
him.
He isn't so much. He's not such a new actor.
But is he a new actor to CGI motion capture and stuff?
Possibly.
Maybe.
So
There's definitely see this stuff here, right? I think you might have hit on it before as well. That if you've got 20 shots. And one of them looks really bad. The trust is broken as a viewer. Like I can't. I now have to study everything. Like and I can't just release and trust that that's a real thing, because you've let me down there. My brain won't let it go.
you're only as good as the lowest.
Is that potentially part of the uncanny problem that is hard to crack? That you have to get it right.
But also we are very scrutinous because we know, that Peter Cushing is dead. We know that this is CG. We know how they do it. We are trained to look at visual effects and judge them. And a lot of my students that did not realize that this was CG. Certainly, my kids who are 12 and 14-year-olds didn't went through the movie not there was nothing no problem at all that they had.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I wasn't already too well informed, whether I would have just gone with it and not thought anything bad.
Well, Gareth Edwards tells a funny story about this because he was talking about the CG. And so he's saying, all right, we were trying really, 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 really hard, and it took us a long time, and we're putting loads of effort in to try and make sure that this was believable and it would work. We then went to see person XYZ about something and get her approval, and she had an assistant with her. And he says, the moment that they felt confident was when they were talking with Kathleen, what's-her-face, the producer, and she was saying, yeah, it's looking pretty good. And then they were saying, but what about his eyes? Do you think his eyes? What about his nose? Do you think maybe his nose moves too much? And this assistant producer is like, why are they hassling that actor about his nose?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just acting.
Yeah.
Just get off. And that's where they thought, what did you just say?
Yeah.
And she said, don't hassle his nose. Yeah. And he's like,
what can he do about his nose? Yeah. And that's probably got so much. It's a fascinating subject to study. That there are people that specialise in trying to crack the code, trying to work out how to do this thing. And it may just be too big. It may be we have these prejudices. We have this predetermined inbuilt mechanism that you can't break it. Like, I know that guy's dead. I can never not know that he's dead.
But that's only
you go in immediately knowing where. Let me spot the.
No, that's a special case. I mean, you could do some tests if you took this original Star Wars and you say, all right, this is all CG. One of the actors in his CG, half the people would be like, oh yeah, that idiot over the side there. Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, how much of this phenomenon has nothing to do with the character, has nothing to do with the skin scanning and the subderma and the modelling and the lighting and whatever. So much of it is the viewer, is built into the viewer, that is unbreakable. Like, you can't rewire those pathways.
I think, like Tom says, if you didn't know that was a CG actor, you could be just like watching and checking out the background and looking at other things. And
what I do know is we couldn't have
you could
this
go straight
film
past.
without Tarkin.
No, it was so good that they had him
We
in there.
needed to have Tarkin in the film,
Kudos
didn't we?
and applause and everything to them.
Yeah.
Mm.
We absolutely needed to have Tarkin. I could have done without Carrie Fisher. I could have had the door open, the captain walk in the door, and the camera just slightly move around to reveal that she's looking out the glass and he's walking up behind her with holding out the disc. She didn't need to turn around. It could have just been a body double.
Could have even been played by Carrie Fisher in that case.
It could have been played by Carrie Fisher. Absolutely. I didn't need that. I thought that was visual effects for visual effects' sake. Like, I don't think we required it.
Hey, did Peter Cushing get a credit? Check in IMDb. I want to know if he is actually credited in the film.
That's a very good call.
Does a dead actor who you reuse, then does his portfolio keep growing?
I'd say not, to be honest with you.
Peter Cushing.
Just by my sort of review of moral rights.
I think it wouldn't. Yeah, it would. It
He gets credit for what he created, but he didn't create.
Well, Andy Serkis gets credited as playing Ping Kong, right? So he should be the British actor who played Tarkin should be credited as Tarkin, not
but
not
what if
Peter
you put
Cushing.
on a mustache, right? And
There's
then
no
you make
credit.
a film and you say, "I'm Andy Serkis," and you march up and down and you pretend to be Andy Serkis. Does that mean Andy Serkis gets a credit in your film because you're pretending
Well, that's
to be
right.
Andy
That's
Serkis?
right. So that's why I'm asking: is if Peter Cushing were in the credits, it wouldn't be right. That's right.
And it doesn't look like it.
It's not good.
No, hasn't got an acting credit since '86.
Yeah, it's like Tenacious D. This is just a tribute.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's flick over here. That was a good video, Dan. So very quickly before we and this is what will be our new rating system is rent, buy, or set on fire.
Yeah.
Rent, buy, set on fire. Okay, but we won't get. We're almost there. I just want to have a look at some numbers. It cost $200 million even. Yeah, exactly to the dollar. $200 million.
Because he
See,
knows
this
how
is
to
Gareth
budget.
Edwards,
Yes.
man.
Yeah.
He knows this stuff.
Yeah,
He's an accountant at heart.
$200 million. It was 500.
But there's no tax in there in the story.
There probably isn't any tax anyway because they make when you look at all the studios that did the effects, and even ILM are in Singapore, aren't they? They
are.
India and Singapore. There's ILM. So 532 million domestic, 523 million. And if you do your maths real quick, you'll know that is $1 billion that this movie has made, which
So far.
shockingly brings up this. It is now number 2 in the trilogy.
Awesome.
Or not the trilogy, but in the Star Wars universe as far as films go. This one is currently sitting number 2 in the list, with the only other film in front of it is Star Wars Force Awakens.
And again, I have to ask: does this take into account inflation?
These are actuals, but we can say 2017 go. This is the adjusting for 2017.
The adjusting one is the more accurate one because
So it's sitting 6th.
this is bums on seats, right?
This is adjusted
how much they
ticket
paid.
sales. This is ticket sales with the adjusted prices. So if you took 2017 prices and charged people that in 1978,
Yeah. So it reflects more how many people actually
Yes.
watched it.
yes, raw ticket sales.
And that puts Star Wars at number 1.
That's interesting.
Absolutely, by a considerable margin,
Yeah.
mind you. But then again, Star Wars. See this down here. Notice number 9, Star Wars Special Edition.
Yeah.
Why isn't that added to this? It's the same film. It's just a
It's
re-release.
not.
Because when you see in this list, when you see
Don't say it's the same film. Don't do that.
Gone and
Yeah.
what's the
been
Gone with the
re-Lucased.
Wind? When you see Gone with the Wind, which always comes in that top 5 as far as all-time grossing, yeah.
Mm.
The reason for that is they kept re-releasing it. It's like Snow White.
Did they keep re-editing it?
Well, no, they didn't keep re-editing
No.
it, but they kept adding the money to the box
It's
office.
the same film.
Taking.
That's fine.
You reckon?
Yeah. No, I concur.
Special
I'm with Tom.
edition
I
is
can
not
see
the same
yours.
film. You see this.
Because in this Star Wars
more
list of
Bantha
movies,
Poodoo in it.
there's 17 films.
Did you say the special edition of Bantha Poodoo?
It's got more Bantha Poodoo in it. Too much.
There's apparently some Attack of the Clones, the IMAX experience, which did a healthy 12 million. But yeah, I thought to hold its own in this list here is not too bad.
I'm glad it's before the prequel, before most of the prequels. I don't know why the Phantom Menace is up there. Probably because of the opening weekend and everybody went. Yeah,
and there was a 20-year gap.
Because the build-up to the Phantom Menace was awesome.
And was 20 years long.
It was great. But, yeah.
Absolutely. So the other notable is, as a prequel film, nothing beats it. It has made more money than any prequel film ever.
Yes.
In box office. So, and that's Prometheus, Paranormal Activity, there's Hannibal Rising, you name it, down that list. It's holding its own as a prequel film. So it's one of the most box office successful prequel films of all time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like...
and they made sure there's not going to be a sequel because all the characters are dead.
Just wipe all the good characters. All the good guys are dead.
Yeah, all the new characters that were introduced got
it's the
extra
bad
juiced at
guys
the end.
that carry us through to the next film.
And I
isn't it?
like that decision, man. I like that decision. I think there should be more tragedies in film. And, yeah, I like it that they're going to cut it off. And, yes, this is a promise. We're not going to milk the shit out of this to you and sell it to you as a Christmas special next year.
So one last thing before we give it a rating. Music. This was not a John Williams film.
Now, I heard things
What'd you hear?
that the music was done in like 4 weeks or something.
Yes.
Or other.
Well, John Williams does his films in 4 weeks.
But it wasn't John Williams. It was some other dude.
But I mean, doing it in 4 weeks is not uncommon.
Okay.
Because normally a film is still editing up to 4 weeks out, and they have to. I mean, they write a lot of the motif.
Surely you can't do it in 4 weeks. You got to get an orchestra and all them violins together. And
I don't think they're writing it in 4 weeks. I think they're producing it in 4 weeks.
I think the point was that it was done quickly.
I had a meeting the other day with the Canberra Canberra Music Festival organisers, and this guy Roland, very knowledgeable music type, said in relation to we said, well you're going to need X amount of time for the orchestra to rehearse. He said, if I've got an orchestra that can't learn how to do something in 3 rehearsals, they're never going to learn in 30.
That's a fair point.
So I think that's how it works with this shit. Well, you turn up with the music, you stick it in front of these people, they study it for a couple of hours, they play it through twice.
They have a cup of coffee and go home.
Because that's their art form. They can read it. You would know. You look at the notation arrangement, and then it's really hand-eye coordination to that. Based on the fact that you've played so much already, hand-eye coordination is not much of a problem.
Honestly,
that's all you do.
If that is your bed and brother, your bed and
It's a totally different story.
bloody vodka.
Yes, this is a children's show.
Who's
Who's
in bed with their brother?
Keep it clean.
It's too much Rammstein.
Monkey's his uncle?
So you're doing that for a living,
Yeah.
and you sit there from 9, say the workday 9 to 5. As a professional musician, you play that perfectly after 3 days. Absolutely.
And you would score dozens of films in a year. I would say probably at least 10 or 12 films a year you might be playing on. So the actual process you're used to as well. I was shocked the first time I found out that they did because Williams did Lord of the Rings music. As far as I'm aware,
John Ho. Wasn't it John Ho?
No, I thought Williams did. I think because Williams got shirty because he literally
Howard
said,
Shore.
Howard
Shore did Lord of the Rings.
I must have at least this amount of time. And what's his name? Jackson didn't give him that amount of time. He showed up late, sort of thing, and he managed to do it anyway. But I got a feeling he might not have had anything to do beyond that. So what did we think of the music, though?
I can't hum the jingle.
No.
I can't hum any of the music. We were talking before. I can hum Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom.
You've spent years and years listening to it too.
And 6 movies. Even take the prequels out, you spent 3 movies. How many times did you see? So Empire's probably your favourite, right?
I like New Hope, to be honest with you.
People. And New Hope, yeah, absolutely. But how many times did you see it?
Oh, loads.
So in close to 30 as a minimum throughout your whole life, probably 30 times. That's how many times you heard that, and then you heard it on the trailers, and then you heard it on the
spoofs and everything.
and that's John Williams. He knows how to make a riff. You know that do 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 that UFO music. That's just a couple of notes, but it's so iconic. And you can, Jaws. It's just two notes. That's what he does. But you're right. I couldn't if you played the music for me tomorrow, I wouldn't know that it's from this film.
Michael Giacchino, who composed it, did thread in a lot of the themes from the characters. He's the Darth Vader theme, which we all, he took a lot of John Williams' stuff and put those things in there when those special characters came. But yeah, the Felicity Jones theme, you wouldn't know. You recognize Luke Skywalker when you hear it, but yeah, you wouldn't. But maybe after 20 years of watching Rogue One, you would. Maybe.
All right, gentlemen, the time has come. Rent, buy, or set on fire.
Well, you've already bought it.
Rent, buy, or burn.
I'm gonna buy it.
So it's a buy for you.
Oh yeah.
It's a buy, and it's also a buy and a rewatch for me.
Yep.
It's one of those ones where you actually rewatch.
Oh, ones that you buy and also watch.
Yes, not just buy and sit on your shelf and say, "Look, I own that."
That's special.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the definition. That's a good way to sum up the definition of buy. I think. Is rewatchability. You would never buy anything you weren't going to watch at least a couple of more times.
Yes.
My collection, everything in that collection that was bought for me has that. That I've got to see it.
Because why else?
Yeah. Otherwise, there's no point. And Rent really doesn't exist anymore. So that should really be pirate. Buy.
Yes. Would I pirate? Yeah. Put that in the list.
I don't want to buy it, but I'll download it.
Yeah.
Well, you have to explain what the difference between buying and pirating is in terms of quality, because these days you download Blu-ray quality.
Yeah, well, you're not invested,
Yeah, you wouldn't spend money on it.
You don't get special features, but I don't buy. I sometimes buy them for special features. Usually, I buy them because I wanted to see the movie.
I'm not willing to spend money on it.
Our time is too expensive to us. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things we would like to do. If I'm going to sit down for 2 hours and invest, it's got to be the good quality. It's got to be the good quality sound. Just on the sound, I've never heard of this, and I haven't been keeping up. The sound mix of this was IMAX 12 track.
What does that mean?
I don't know. How many tracks have we got now? Like, I knew we had 7.1, but we now got 12? Is there 12 tracks of audio is IMAX something special?
No idea.
I'm going to have to check it out, because it's 12 track digital sound. That's look, that's what it says here.
6 tracks for each ear.
Yeah. 12 track digital sound.
What happens when you click on the link?
It probably gets really wordy. Popular 12 track digital sound titles.
Ooh, it's modern. Beauty and the Beast do it. Kong Skull Island. It's a recent thing.
It's really
Everyone's doing it these days, dude.
Volume 2.
Guardians of the Galaxy, Justice League, Doctor. Oh, wow.
Nobody knows what it is,
Avengers.
but everybody's doing it.
It looks pretty new.
Yeah.
Yep, cool. So I'll learn a bit more of it, because now that means I've got to go and buy more speakers.
I've got to get 12 more speakers.
12 more speakers. Okay, so it's unanimous. We're all buying it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's little instances here and there. I tried desperately not to corrupt my opinion of the film because of my connection to the original property. I have a problem with your mates over at Red Letter Media, because they have that issue in a big way, sometimes to the ignorance of
New things.
fact-based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like them. I like what they say, and they've come up with some really cool theories about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But also they are probably the ambassadors of the original trilogy, and if they had their way, there would be no other films. And I get it. I get why they do that. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world where we do have these films. And I'm not just going to shove them out the door just because they don't match what you loved when you were 5.
Mm.
So I had to do that. I had to force myself to do that. I've got to set that over there. It's a different era. It's a different time. I thought this film was done really, really well across the board on every level. So it's a big thumbs up for me, and I hope they make many, many more of these spin-offs in that universe that we love so much. Any parting words of the film before we sign off, gentlemen? Messages for anyone that perhaps hasn't seen it, or...
Well, if they have gone through the end of this show without having seen Rogue One.
They don't need to see
They
it.
don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I'll just leave people with a warning that this show contains spoilers.
Yeah. Before you listen to everything
Yes.
that you've just listened to,
Just remember, it's got spoilers. Yeah.
spoiler alert. All right, that's it for another show. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What is your purpose here? How many